Hello and welcome to the OnlyAccies podcast. Today I am joined by a former Hamilton defender who spent over 10 years at the club and was part of some of the most famous results we have ever had. He beat Celtic away at Parkhead, destroyed Motherwell home and away, and of course was part of the Hibs away day playoff. He's here to talk us through some of his favourite Hamilton memories, his time at the club and the players he played alongside, as well as talking about his time in Poland and Australia. I hope you enjoy today's podcast. If you do, be sure to leave it a like rating and don't forget to subscribe if you're on YouTube and follow if you're on Spotify to never miss some OnlyAccies podcasts. Hello and welcome to another OnlyAccies podcast. My guest today is a man who spent over 10 years at the club and is of course one of the heroes of the Hibs final playoff. We are joined today by the man down under, Ziggy Gordon. Ziggy, how are we?
I'm good, Ben. How are you doing?
Not bad, man. How is lockdown treating you in Australia?
To be fair, we've not really had any kind of similarities to yourself. Lockdown's been pretty easy for myself. We've been able to go to the supermarket, go to restaurants, take away. I live next to the beach. I live on the beach. I go swimming every single morning in the ocean. So I'm very privileged and lucky to be in a position where the government reacted very quickly, and we've had less than 100 deaths. Oh. So that's very lucky, and things are looking up right now. We can go into restaurants now and sit in, and by Monday we should be allowed to have gatherings of over 50. So a bit different to life where you are, mate.
Yeah, we're struggling a wee bit, I'm not going to lie. So we start obviously with your career at Hamilton, coming obviously as a young guy. So you were working under the likes of Frankie McAvoy then at that time, I'm guessing. What was he like to work under as a youth coach, and why do you think the Hamilton Youth Academy and the youth system has been so successful under the likes of him and George Cairns?
I think Hamilton's Youth Academy has been so successful is because unlike other clubs in Scotland, it's out of necessity. They don't have the luxury of finances and legacy in terms of Premier League football. So it's hard, especially in Hamilton, when you've got so many Old Firm fans, it's hard to persuade kids to come to your club without having a clear pathway into a first team. Hamilton Accies do that. They do that unapologetically, and I think we've reaped the rewards. And I mean, what is that, 7 years in the Premier League? I think I've been a part of 4 of those years. So it's made us successful, and success breeds more success, and that means younger, better players want to come to Hamilton Accies instead of go to the likes of the Old Firm. So that's why I believe.
And one of the coaches you worked under during your time at Hamilton was Billy Reid, and we spoke to Simon Mensinger last week, and he said that Billy was a great coach. He loved to give kind of youth players their chance, but he also did like to have a laugh, and part of the camaraderie within that team was the fact all he's got along, and enjoyed nights out. What was that experience like for you, obviously coming through as a young player then, working under the likes of Billy Reid?
I mean, it was a hard school, and that's something at the time I didn't appreciate, but now looking back at my career, it certainly moulded me into the player and the person I am right now. It was never easy to get into the first team, and it should never be easy to get in the first team. It should be a privilege, and a lot of sacrifice and hard work went into get my first start. And he believed in me. Like I said, you need a lot of persuading sometimes from younger players, and that's a good thing. That shouldn't be looked upon as a negative. And all I can say is when Billy left, eventually it was a very sad day for me. I remember giving a call after training that day, and was really thankful for everything he did to me. And without him, I possibly wouldn't be where I am today. So, I've only got good things to say about Billy, and I'm sure a lot of ex-players will say the same.
Well, that was something I was going to ask about actually. When obviously Billy left, what was the kind of morale like in the team then at that point? Because he'd been obviously there for such a long time and had been successful with you guys. Was it a shock to you, or was it something that you and the other players kind of saw coming at that time?
We never saw it coming, but I think it was a mutual decision by Billy and the club at that time. I think it'd been many years of the same, and I think it needed a change up. Just like every organisation, even the best clubs in the world are so successful but they need to change eventually, and that was what was happening at Accies. There's so much success, but things change, and sometimes change is good. And I think at that moment, Alec coming through, obviously being a predecessor to Billy, it worked great because I think we won 10 of the 11 remaining games.
Yeah. And that was kind of leads me quite nicely on to ask about Alec. Obviously, he took over, and I don't need to mention the success he's had. Obviously, he's doing fantastically at Hamilton, and obviously what he's done afterwards. When he was taking the step up from being the captain to then being the player manager, did that change how he was with you guys now that he was managing rather than just playing alongside you?
Nah, no, I don't think it changed for anybody, quite honestly. He was always, a gaffer in the making. I looked at him as he was the gaffer, not the captain. So in terms of your question, I don't think there was any kind of changes in mood or how the players reacted to him.
And when he did take that step up, did he come and speak to you all? Did you have a meeting and say, Alec's going to take over, or was it just a case of let's just go on like normal, Alec's taking on, let's just push on and try and finish the season?
I think that's exactly what happened. Billy and the club's directors, the likes of Les Gray and Ronnie McDonald, basically just addressed us all. It was done, unanimously, and Billy said his goodbyes and thanked the club, and we were just told that Alec was going to take the reins from now to the end of the season. And it was done very fluidly. There was no bad energy in the room at all. We were sad to see Billy go, but we understood, what the club were doing.
And, we're talking about you coming through as a young guy into the Accies team. I mean, some of the players you were in the dressing room with, Martin Canning, Alec Neil, Dougie Imrie, and Simon Mensing, again, what was that like for the young players coming through to that dressing room? Was that intimidating at all, or did that help you, help spur you on later on?
It was very intimidating at the beginning, but rightly so. I'm sure you hear on numerous podcasts how the mentality and the progression from youth team to first team is very different now. And I remember, the hard times, and it moulded me to where I am today. I look back fondly at the difficulties I had coming through into that first team environment, and I'm glad for that. Maybe not at the time, but now I'm very pleased for the hard upbringing I had at Hamilton.
You're one of the players that I used to love watch, loved the tackle, and seemed to love those derby games, the games against the Old Firm, obviously playing against Motherwell, the games that players like yourself, Dougie Imrie, you all seem to really build yourself up to that, and you were part of some really famous wins over Motherwell, 5-0 at home, 4-0 away. And what was a build-up like for a derby for Hamilton? How did the coaching differ, if at all? What were the players like leading up to a big game like that?
Well, I'm gonna tell you what every fan doesn't want to hear, and it's business like normal. We don't have pictures of them in the wall and war songs before the games. It's like every other game, and you need to go into every game with your emotions intact. We know, it's important to the fans. Would I rather beat Motherwell than Kilmarnock? Yes, of course. But at the end of the day, when you're in the position of Hamilton Accies, every point's a prisoner. And that's what we look at. We look at it like every other game, our emotions intact, and get the job done. And, I think I've been a part of as many victories as I have losses.
Yeah, and part of that 2012 season we're talking about, with Billy Reid, getting voted the Player of the Year in 2012 for Hamilton, was that like the perfect ending to a good season for you personally coming through to the first team?
Yes, but to be honest, Stevie May scored a record amount of goals in the championship, so I mean, I don't have a big family, which is the only way I can understand why I got that vote. So obviously the fans just took to me, and I think I had a really good, strong second half of the season playing a left back for Hamilton. It was great at the time, but honestly, it just spurred me on to the next season, and obviously the season after that we got promoted, and I probably to this day probably had my best season I've had as a professional football player.
Fair enough. And I'd like to talk about, before we move on to the big topic, when you returned to Hamilton for that second spell and you were playing, you're a much more experienced player coming back, obviously. You've been given the captaincy multiple times. Did leaving Hamilton and then coming back as a more experienced player, do you think that helped you that season, given that you were able to help a lot of the young players come through at that time?
I mean, I think last season was probably my most complete season as a professional.
Mm-hmm.
I think I left and I grew up as a person, as a player, a lot more humility about myself, and I came back with for the right reasons.
Yeah.
On and off the pitch, and I was fortunate the club, felt the same. And at that time, I had other offers on the table, but the allure of Accies is I know what I'm getting.
Yeah.
And as a football player, that's invaluable. So they knew what they were getting. I knew exactly what I was going there to do. And I think even from the off, we went to play Annan away and we lost, and it's a horrifying result.
Yeah. But
I remember even in that game, I felt good about myself. And from then on, I never looked back. And to this day, I'm going to try and play as well as I did in that season, because I think I played almost every minute of every game.
Yeah.
And it was a tough season last season, but one that I look back, fortuitously.
And just from the fans' perspective, when it came to the end of that season, we knew that you were leaving. We knew that we knew you weren't going to sign a contract extension. We knew you were going, and so to get that goal against St Johnstone, that must have been like for you the perfect goodbye. Scoring, secure as promotion. Realistically, that was the game that we needed to win. So was that almost to you like, thanks for the memories, this is the perfect way to sign off?
Yeah, of course. I mean, to score the goal that ultimately keeps your club, that you have some real deep feelings for in the league. Not that I don't think we would have gone to the playoffs and lost.
Yeah.
I don't think that for a second. But I'd rather not go into the playoffs, like I'm sure a lot of the fans would rather. And scoring against St Johnstone when I had only scored one goal that season, was a great send off. But there's little moments from that season, last season, that I'm particularly fond of.
Yeah.
And I think back really, really, really happily.
Yeah. And one of the coaches I would like to ask you about, spoke about Reid earlier, is Martin Canning, who, let's be honest, has a very split opinion, I think, between fans. And I'm man enough to say, I'm honest enough to say that when he was in charge coming to the end of his time at Hamilton, I wasn't his biggest fan. I'm more than happy to admit that. But you were always one of the players who came out and supported him in the press. Was that because you'd obviously played alongside him for so many years, and you could see the effect it was having on him that a lot of the fans don't see in the dressing room? Because it was clear to see, I think, for fans that he was struggling, but maybe not the extent of how much that was having an effect on him. So what was it like for you all in the dressing room during that?
I mean, that's an extremely controversial question to answer, because not only was Martin my manager, he was a friend of mine.
Yeah.
I care about Martin and his family, and but at the end of the day, it was business.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're in a heated environment and you're in the bottom of the league and you've got lives depending on every single week, it's not easy.
Yeah.
I need to remember that Martin came from a background of playing.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have the opportunity that Alex Neil did to have a team in the championship, which we were far too good for.
Yeah.
in the first place. It was a very different tutelage Martin had
Mm-hmm.
to what Alex had. And you can't forget that Martin kept Accies in the league for 4 years.
Yeah.
So wherever you think at the time that he left, I hope that's not overshadowed by the good that he did do at the club. So I hope that fans remember Martin as what he was and what he can be remembered as a player, because he took many of those good characteristics into becoming a manager that ultimately kept the club up for 4 years.
He's somebody we would love to get on the podcast and ask about, because they're very interesting character. I've heard him on other podcasts as well, and he seems like a really nice guy, you know, and he just seems as if it kind of got to the point where he knew it was time to go. And I'd be really interested to ask him about that, because I think he would be a great podcast guest. So before we move on to Hibs, obviously, which we're both dying to get to, they're live streaming it the day of recording. When you went and played in Poland, moving abroad now, it's your mother that's Polish, isn't it?
Yeah, mother's side.
Yeah. So was that always like a goal for you, was to go and play in Poland? You know, to go and experience that kind of culture, that kind of lifestyle.
No, it wasn't at all. I mean, football graces you with all sorts of opportunities. Some are fortunate, some are not so fortunate. And when the opportunity came up for the third time, I thought, you know, I'm going to go for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so pleased I did, because I became back a good, you know, a far superior player, I believe, a better person, and I met my fiancée. So for me, it's something I would never regret.
Yeah, and Poland kind of has a reputation of, I think, being a bit mental. From some of the reports you see, what was your time like there with the fans? I imagine it would have been a bit crazy, some of the games.
Yeah, I mean, it was carnage. The first game we played, you know, the first game that I played, the game had to be abandoned twice because of flares. So it was definitely a crazy introduction to what football is abroad. But I loved most of the time. But
yeah,
you know, it's difficult for foreign players to play there, because it's absolutely ruthless. And you know, I was having a great time under one manager who brought me in, and then another manager came in who didn't speak a word of English, didn't know my name, didn't know who I was,
yeah,
didn't know the player I was, and you know, it petered out. And
mm-hmm.
That's how ruthless football can be, and that's something that people forget.
One thing he said in the papers when I was kind of doing my research for this was he spoke quite openly about the Scottish coaches compared to the Polish coaches, and quite, I don't want to say controversially, but it picked up a bit of media at the time, was that he said that Scottish coaches have a lot to learn. What do you think it is about the coaches in Poland that made them, or make them, superior to the ones in Scotland?
What I will say, Ben, is doesn't every coach have a lot to learn?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I'm just interested in that.
So that's they used a soundbite from that and used it in whatever narrative they wanted to use it in.
Right.
I said that Scottish coaches have a lot to learn, but so do Polish coaches.
Yeah, and they twisted it into a verses almost.
Exactly. So I've not really got any comment, because at the end of the day, I'm sure the interview is there for all to see, and I actually speak very highly of Scottish coaches. So, you know, it's unfortunate they used it in the manner it did, but at the end of the day, I couldn't care less.
Fair enough. Now, obviously, you're spending your time in Australia at the moment, playing in the A-League. That kind of move to Australia, I heard you say that you get a phone call from the manager and he convinced you to go over. Now, the quality of football in Australia is a high quality. The weather's beautiful, so did you need much convincing to make that move?
The thing with Australia, Ben, is it's a very inclusive non-inclusive market. You can only have 5 foreign players at each team.
Wow.
So for me to get an offer from Scotland to come to Australia does not happen.
Yeah.
Really, ever. So I had to take the opportunity, because I don't think I could not lie in that opportunity, because it may only happen once. I could be player of the year for the next 10 years. This opportunity may never come back again.
Yeah.
So it's one of those, when you weigh everything up, sometimes you got to take a leap of faith. And, you know, I think I'm man enough to know when's a good time and when's not such a good time. And I think, you know, at 26 years old, I would only get this opportunity once.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fair. Now, listen, you're obviously doing really well. I went and watched quite a few of your a lot of the media you've done over in Australia, and fans seem to really be taken to you, as they did in Scotland. And you're one of the players who really enjoyed having that rapport with the fans. Do you think that was just you being a football fan yourself and understanding where fans come from and what fans go through watching the games, that gave you that connection with fans wherever you go?
Nah, not really at all, Ben.
Okay.
I think I'm just the person I am.
Mm.
I'm just that human being that's personable. I like to give as much as, you know, more so than I can receive, and if I can make someone's day, it makes my day. It's simple.
Simple as that. Well, that's great to hear. Now, the game that we've avoided talking about, Hibs. One of the best experiences of my life ever. And my co-host Brandon, who's usually here but unfortunately is unwell, he's listed it as the greatest day of all time. As what I'm sure most fans will agree with. Now going into that first game, the home leg, home advantage, on a good run of form in the league, you must have all have been confident going into that you'd get a result. You said earlier on you treat every game the same, every game gets the same reaction.
Sorry, could you repeat that, Ben?
Yeah, of course. So after that first leg obviously didn't go as planned, what was the team talk like afterwards? Was it just get your heads down, we'll go again the second leg, or did that have to change Neil's team talk?
I don't think anything changed. I think if you watched that season, you could see that we had a lot of belief in the team. So it didn't take much encouragement to go out there. We knew we were the better team in the first game. We knew we were better than them in the first game. So we knew that going to Easter Road, we were going to win.
Yeah.
It felt like there wasn't even a question. I went into that game knowing we were going to win the game. It was, and I think I've never been in a squad with such belief and in such entitlement to go and win a game. I never thought we were going to lose that game, and I always thought we were going to win the game more than 2 goals. And it's a difficult confidence to really articulate.
Yeah.
It's just knowing that you're going to do something and you're going to do it.
And how big of a part did Alec Neil have to play with that, being the player manager at the time? Did he have that instilled in you from that second half of the season when you went on that amazing run? So how much of a part did he have to play in that confidence and getting that up, not just from you but from every player in that team?
I think Alex Neil is an uncommon individual. He's got an aura around him. He's got a sense of understanding of each individual player. He's got fantastic football knowledge. And don't forget, he was a fantastic player, a very, very underrated player, if you ask me. And he had a sense of, you know, wisdom about him that he was never really questioned because we all knew he had the answer. And we always knew he was right. So no one really argued with him. And I think from the moment he took over, he knew, it's almost like he had been stewing in his mind what he was going to do the moment he took over for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
It was so seamless. Everything was not, you know, random. It looks like he had a game plan from the very first minute that he got the reins at the club. And it's funny that I think about an hour before the game, he was going to start the game.
Yeah.
And Ali Crawford wasn't going to play. And then Ali Crawford ended up playing. And, you know, as a fantastic game, like everyone did. And, you know, these little things, you know, look a bit like luck or chance to us, but he's thinking about these things every minute, every day. And everything has a purpose and a reason for it.
And when that second goal went in, obviously really when you yourself had a big part to play in that, playing that pass along. One of the fan questions actually was, can you talk us through that in your head when you went down? Did you think that the chance was gone then, going late on? What was going through your head at that point?
I remember getting the ball on the left at the halfway line, and I passed it to Daz McKinnon.
Mm.
And I just remember throughout that season, I was a very different player to I am now. I had a lot of little things that have never left me, but I was a very attacking player.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember having a really good, energy and stamina. And I just remember passing the ball and putting my head down thinking, I'm just going to go. There's a couple... It's funny because the clock at the stadium was behind the time.
Oh, right.
The clock said that we actually had more time than what we actually did have.
Yeah.
So I remember thinking, we've got a few minutes here. I'm just going to play the ball to Daz and then run down the channel. Little did I know we had about 20 seconds left. So I'll thank Hibs for that, for our success. Whoever arranged their cloth, it certainly wasn't Big Ben, done us a favour. And I just remember, with all the confidence that we had throughout the season, the swagger I felt I had at that moment, I was just going to go for it. And then I managed to get the 1-2 from Daz. And I thought, to be fair, I thought I was going to get a free kick or a penalty.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. You went down, yeah.
I get wiped out. And I think I was in the box, but I'm not sure. I was trying to get into the box with my dive.
Aye.
And then the ball went to Jason. He's then turned and played to Tony, and the rest is history. But at the time, I thought I've won as a penalty or a free kick or something. And then I remember just looking up and the ball's in the back of the net.
And that was it. That was the emotion must have been crazy. And it obviously went straight. They went to penalties, which is the most nerve-wracking thing I've ever experienced. I can't imagine what it was like for you guys in the pitch. Were you secretly hoping that you wouldn't have to take that? You wouldn't have to take a penalty? Or were you kind of thinking, the confidence is high, let's do it, I'll get there, I'll blast it in?
Nah, I was dead on my feet at the time. And I was hoping that our better players on the ball were just going to do the business for us, and they did. I mean, I couldn't believe... See, when we went to penalties, I knew we had won it.
Yeah.
Automatically, because we practice penalties every single day.
Wow.
Every single game we had finished with penalties. And Kevin Cuthbert was a fantastic penalty saver.
Yeah.
And we had some of the best penalty takers in the game at that time. We had Antoine Courier, who was so cool. Jason Scollins, who's clinical. Ali Crawford, who would just put it in the top corner. Grant Gillespie, who you would hang your hat on. I knew that every single one of them were gonna score.
Mm.
And I'm just glad me and Kanzo just stayed at the back and watched that happen. I knew we had won it. I knew we had won it already. So I was totally calm. I knew it was done.
Yeah. And I would love to ask about Antoine Courier, who we all know is a bit of a character. And he said in an interview that when he went up to take that penalty, he was going to chip it down the middle. And then he saw the chairman in the stadium and they gave him this look and he said, no. He said, I'm not doing it. Keep it simple. When people like him were stepping up to any penalty, the players who liked having a little bit of flair, at that moment were you just thinking, don't try anything, please, just batter it in?
Nah, I had total trust in Antoine. So I knew whatever he did, he was going to score. Okay? He could have done a back heel, he would have scored it.
And the celebrations afterwards now, I suppose the first question is, do you remember any of the celebrations afterwards, or was it a bit of a mental time?
No, I remember every moment of it, and I just remember Kanzo sprinting off and me thinking, can I swear?
Of course, yeah, go nuts.
I was just thinking, fucking hell, he's quick.
Kanzo off the line.
I was thinking, where's he been all season? He was off like a shot. And I just remember trying to grab his shorts to slow him down. Because I was thinking, this isn't fair. And I just remember getting cramped on the way, sprinting. And I just, seamless, I just kept running. And everyone was just going mental and it's pandemonium. But, I think for me, it was brilliant for the likes of yourself your friends, everyone who's associated with Hamlin Accies, because that moment has started a legacy of the club.
Absolutely, and that famous photograph that is up on the wall inside the stadium, he's all lining up, everyone running towards it. Like I said, it was definitely one of the best moments of my life, and I'm sure most. Actually, one of the things somebody said in one of the comments when I was asking for questions is, somebody said, "Do you think anything will ever top that for Hamilton, that playoff final?"
I think that's a question you need to ask yourself.
Well, I would say, and I think this is what thing. If Alex Neil had stayed, and I have no, no hard feelings, but I'm going to Norwich. It's a fantastic opportunity. But if he'd stayed, I reckon we'd have got Europe, and I'm confident enough to say that. So I think that would have topped it. But he went to Norwich. He did really well, so I can't fault the guy. But I think Norwich would probably I think Europe, would probably top that. Now, I remember all the players on the bus coming to the vaults afterwards, and I was there, and he's all coming off the bus, everyone going mental. I'm sure I was up on, was it Jason? I was up on somebody's shoulders. I think it was Jason Scotland. I was up on someone's shoulders. It was just pandemonium. The streets were full, blocking traffic. To get that experience with the fans afterwards, that obviously he celebrated in the stadium, but to go and meet them at the pub afterwards, was that like the perfect ending to an already perfect day?
I mean, for a sense of myself, it was just so elating to see so many happy people.
Yeah.
Because I think that moment kind of epitomised everything that is Hamlin Accies. It was fans, players, all together.
This big family, and like I said, it's one of the best times of my life, and I'm sure a lot of fans would agree with me. Speaking of fans, we'll move on to the fan questions. You've got plenty of them. One of them you already answered, what was going through your mind when that second goal went in at Hibs. But we'll go into, what was your favourite moment in an Accies shirt? Do you have something in particular that stands out to you?
I mean, I'm so fortunate. I've got so many good memories and amazing moments. That's an impossible question. It really is. I mean, I captained Hamilton in our first win against Celtic at Celtic Park.
Yep.
I captained Hamilton when we beat Motherwell 4-0 away from home. I played every single minute of every single game in the promotion season. I scored a goal to keep the club in the league last season. I've made some crucial tackles in crucial times.
Yep.
That's kept games alive. It's extremely tough question, and I wish I could answer it, but the fact that I can't answer it really does answer your question.
Absolutely, it's great to hear that you've got so many memories. Best player you've played with at Hamilton?
Alex Neil.
Alex Neil. Is that, you said he's an underrated player himself, but do you think having that mindset, that football brain, puts him ahead of anybody else?
He's miles ahead. I played with top internationalists. I played with, just incredibly talented players. Alex Neil's the best player. So underrated. He was good at things you wouldn't even consider. He had a good change of pace. He knew where the ball was going to be at the right time, all the time. He had a great presence and leadership. So for me, Alex Neil's the best player I've ever played with.
Fantastic. I'm sure Accies fans will love to hear that. This is a bit of an odd one. Do you have a favourite kit from your time at Hamilton?
I do. The first season we went up to the Premier League, I liked that kit because it was quite well fitted. I think the kit that we had when we went up to the Premier League was so loose and horrible. That's the only reason I didn't like it. But you'll know as well as I do, there's not much that changes in the Hamilton Accies top.
Well, that's something that fans are. When we had Alan Maitland on the podcast a few weeks ago, one of the questions was about kits, because people are wanting old kits, like kind of redesigned, and one of the ones was that Inter Milan, that Inter Milan away, the blue and black stripe from that Celtic game. That's one of the ones that stands out, I think, for a lot of ones. Okay, we'll end on this question then, I guess. This is from Hannah, who said, when you come to the end of your career, would you like to go into coaching? Is that something you've got any interest in?
I mean,
we've got a few years left to think about it, let's be honest. Like, you're not in any rush.
I know. I don't like to live my life by saying I'm gonna do something at this particular time. I think it's a lot more enjoyable living life without any commitments to what I need to do. I think I'm very flexible to go down any line of work. I'm passionate about charity work. I'm passionate about football. I'm passionate about helping people and encouraging people to live a healthy and happy life. I would love to come back to Accies and be the manager one day.
Well,
but just as I am being the manager of Accies one day, I may just be as happy as being a professional dog walker.
Well, it's good to see that you'd like to. You've got aspirations maybe to hopefully one day come back. Cause I'm sure you'd be welcome with open arms. At this
point, for sure, I can certainly see myself coming back to Accies in one capacity or another. But that could very much change in the next hour or day or week. But I've got such an affinity with that club. I can no doubt see myself and my face reappearing at that club someday.
I'll tell you, we would all love to see it. Well, Ziggy, thank you very much for joining us on the OnlyAccies podcast. We've still got 5 minutes before the game kicks off. Go grab your snacks, go get a beer, and enjoy the game. Ziggy, thanks a lot for joining us, man.
Cheers. Take care of yourself.
Thank you, man. Cheers.